Beware spoilers. I am Adam. Book of Boba Fett, episode 2. Now, here's the thing. I'm not a huge fan of this show, because here's the problem, it's insane. It is. I don't understand how people are watching this show and being like, oh my god, this is great, this is awesome. Like, it should be divisive, because we watched 3 movies of Star Wars where people could not stop bitching about how, oh, nothing bad ever happens to Rey. Oh, Rey always, everything good always happens to Rey, and she, like, yeah, she died, but she still, she had no training and she can do everything, and it's like, well, here's the thing, like, in the show, Boba Fett is, I mean, look, I understand that Boba Fett is was trained under Cad Bane, I understand all of that, but here's the thing. Over the course of the flashbacks on this show, we have seen Boba Fett come out of the Sarlacc pit, get captured by Tusken Raiders, and then thrawn his way into helping the Tusken Raiders and becoming, like, one of them. And I'm watching this, and I'm like, who the fuck is watching this? And then the whole train raid takes me completely out of it, because I'm like, first of all, using the word train feels weird, considering, like, everything else in this fucking universe has a different name, except for a train, apparently. Whereas, like, even, like, if you read the books and if you watch the stuff, it's like, birds aren't called birds, like, nothing is the same. Like, even, like, planes, there's no word for planes that's similar. There's always some other name for it. Cars, there's no cars, always land speeders or something else. And it's like, train. Okay, sure, I guess. Then there's this train in the middle of the desert that's just going, and it's like, well, fuck, what the fuck is this? And it's like, it feels like they're like, we want to do a sequence where he has to rob a train, but at the same time, we can't do it. And I feel like these flashbacks are just designed to, to be like, oh, we are building towards why he has turned his back on bounty hunting. Because that's the thing, is like, he's a bounty hunter, not, and yeah, he works for Jabba, he's a bounty hunter for Jabba the Hutt, but, like, over the course of the various, show, like, the various comics and everything, it's like, he's a bounty hunter for other people too, not just for Jabba. Like, he's trained to be a bounty hunter in the same way the Mandalorian is. And I feel like it's a little bit like they're getting, like, first of all, having him take over command of this, of Jabba's thing, and they use a lot of Italian words, because it's obvious that they're trying to make this into The Godfather, when it is not. It is closer to, like, season 2 or season 3 of Arrow than it is to The Godfather, or let's say it's season 3 or season 4 of Arrow, than it is to The Godfather. I feel like there's, there is a story that could have been told here that would have been more interesting than the one that is currently being told. But I don't think that, like, like, here's the thing. It's like, before The Mandalorian, I would have said the perfect Boba Fett story would have been Midnight Run. No, you could still do Midnight Run, because it would still be different enough. Like, because, while, what's it called, is Lone Wolf and Cub, while The Mandalorian is Lone Wolf and Cub, and it's the story of, like, a guy and a kid on an adventure, and he's got to protect the kid. Like, Midnight Run, for those of you who haven't seen this De Niro movie, is about a guy who's a bounty hunter, like more like Dog the Bounty Hunter than a space bounty hunter, or a bail bondsman bounty hunter, who goes out to capture a guy who has jumped bail. And then they slowly develop a friendship over the course of it. And that would have been awesome to watch. Like, that would have been cool. But that's not what we have here. And yeah, am I a little bit more excited now that there's a possibility that Afra shows up? Definitely. Because I love that character, and I love the world that they've built for that character. And if we get that, that would be awesome. But I don't necessarily think that that's going to come, imminently. I mean, they introduced Black Kurza, I don't know how to pronounce his name, who is the Wookiee bounty hunter who's on her crew. They introduced him, but, here's what I don't get. And he is working for the Hutt twins, and it's like, okay, so these twin Hutts are going to try and take command of Jabba's operation, but Jabba didn't get his, it feels weird to me, because that's the thing, it's that this show takes place after The Mandalorian, because he got his armor back. He lost his armor, then Timothy Olyphant finds it with the Jawas, and then trades with the Jawas to get the armor, and then he ends up with Boba Fett's armor, and then he goes and then Mando gets the armor back. Boba Fett follows Mando to wherever, and wherever it was that he found him, and they get there, and sure enough, now he's back on Tatooine after everything that went wrong prior to that point. And now he's back, and now he's taking control of Jabba's operations. Now, one could say probably that this is a revenge for what Jabba did to him, and how Jabba kind of screwed him. But I don't think that's necessarily 100% accurate. I don't know how true that is. I mean, and the thing is, you can make that case all you want, but at the end of the day, it's, it's not like it's a good reason for him to suddenly be like, yeah, I'm going to do this. And I understand if he's like, yeah, I want to, make money, but doesn't that feel like it goes against, why he became a bounty hunter? And it's like, oh, he's a bounty hunter to, because that's what his father did, and it's his legacy to his father, it's his legacy to the mask he wears. But yeah, I guess I feel like it's a weird situation, where it's like, I don't need necessarily all of this nonsense all around it. What the fuck is with this light? And yeah, I mean, I feel like there's a certain amount of the show that I'm putting up with because there's Star Wars in the title, and again, I ask myself, as I did with many other Disney Plus shows at this point, would I still be watching this show if it didn't have Star Wars in the title? If it wasn't, if it was a different, science fiction series, would I still be putting up with it? And, probably the fact that, these flashbacks are just nonsense, probably would have made me abandon the show by now if it wasn't Star Wars. In the same way that, I probably would have dropped WandaVision, or Hawkeye, or, what was the other one? Probably not Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I probably would have stuck with Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But I think that there's a fundamental issue here, and it is Boba Fett, as we see him, does not have any major problems, because even in this episode with his stuff where he's dealing with the mayor of Mos Espa, it's it still feels political, and it's that's what everyone hated about the prequels. It was it's too not political as we say it today, where it's that means that there are too many black people in it. Although that happened then too. Those complaints happened then too. I'm well aware of those complaints that happened. I remember being in the 3rd grade and this guy freaking out on me and calling Mace Windu the N-word because he killed Jango Fett. And that resurrection can't happen because he was beheaded. I feel like there's a story to be told about what's going on. And the thing is too, it's I don't give a fuck about the politics of Tatooine. I'm sorry, I really don't. The government systems of Tatooine are not interesting to me. The politics of Tatooine are not interesting to me. It is the least interesting planet in the galaxy. Luke says as much in his introduction, where he's like, oh, if there's a bright, shining point at the center of the galaxy, you're at the point farthest away from it. Like, it's set up to be a shithole. Like, it is the planet you are meant to leave. And then when Luke goes back to it in episode 6, it is him returning home after going on the journey and becoming the mystic that he is set out to. So when he returns, he is now more powerful, going back to his home to be like, look what I can do. So there's a kind of, resonance to that. I don't need to see an entire fucking show about Boba Fett fucking around on Tatooine. I really don't. I don't give a fuck, because at the end of the day, Boba Fett is not mentioned in the sequel trilogy. Boba Fett is not mentioned in anything else outside of, this show. So, obviously this amounts to literally nothing. Rey goes to Tatooine, and everything's kind of, fine. I don't think we need Boba Fett to, be explored to the degree that he is. I'm sorry. You know what? I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry in the slightest. I don't think we need to be sitting here and wasting now an hour and a half going through and being like, well, what's Boba Fett been up to after he was presumed dead? And that's the other thing I want to address is, there's a weird narrative around who's allowed to and who's not allowed to retcon stuff. And I feel like that's a thing that really needs to be addressed. And the Book of Boba Fett, and to an extent The Mandalorian, are really highlighting this divide. And I feel like it's like, I feel like it's like, they don't need to really address the elephant in the room here, and that is, what is Boba Fett, there for? Here's the question. The original trilogy came out in 1977, 80, 82. So in 82, that comes out. There have been multiple changes to that movie in the time since. In the extended editions, in with what Lucas did, and all of that. I don't think that it is necessarily, 100% accurate that this is what Lucas would have wanted, because we've seen the changes that Lucas would have wanted had he gotten his way and had technology been where it was. And he has voiced in the past that he considered, toying with making it where, that scene where Boba Fett is clawing his way out of the Sarlacc, he toyed with having that added in when he did it. And he did his extended edition, where he added in that fucking little, guy who looks like the old mascot for, what's it called? For, Honeycomb Cereal. When they added that guy singing that fucking song while the lady dances. And it's cool, he does that, but he did not have Boba Fett escape. He had that option. He was also explicit about the fact that Boba Fett and Jango Fett are not Mandalorians. But the current people who are writing this show and doing that have retconned that against his wishes. And the thing is, it's like Filoni and Favreau are getting leeway from the fans to retcon things. And I'm not saying leeway where the fans are letting them do it. I'm saying the fans are not jumping on them for retconning it, or in the way that they jumped on other people. Kathleen Kennedy, J.J. Abrams, and all of that. When it was revealed that he gave scripts or outlines for episodes, for episodes 7, 8, and 9 that he had written with his own kind of thing, and when that was revealed, and that Disney didn't use them, you would have thought that it was fucking like, end of the world. Like, oh, well, George Lucas gave a script for this. Why didn't you use the script that George gave? George wrote the originals. George knows more about Star Wars than anyone else. Why didn't you use what George wanted? And then it's like, here, they could have retconned, there was an opportunity to retcon Boba Fett into doing it. Because Boba Fett was retconned into Episode 4. Because Boba Fett was in, he was in A New Hope in that scene when Jabba meets Han at the Falcon. And that's an important, thing to distinguish, is that they could have done that. They could have done that. He didn't want to do that, though. He said ultimately he decided not to because he wanted that to be the death of the character. And the fact of the matter is, we're here and we're now watching a TV show that is entirely predicated on going against the wishes, the long-standing wishes of George Lucas. And you would have thought that would have been, blasphemy or heresy from the fan community that went apeshit. Could not handle it. That, they were doing what they wanted to in the sequel trilogy and not strictly adhering to whatever George Lucas wanted to do. It boggles the mind that it's this transparent that, we're sitting here and we're looking at that where it's like, it's okay for some people to do it. And if the retcons are to give a male character more to do, that's okay. If the retcons are to give a female character more to do, that's not okay. And the other thing is, it's not like the retcons that the sequel trilogy... And the sequel trilogy wasn't even really a retcon. It was more of a, I'm not using the outlines you gave because we have no requirement to. We're going to hire our own people to write a script. Because this bullshit about, where it's taking place in the fucking microverse, looking at the fucking midichlorians at a closer level for an entire trilogy, yeah, that's not gonna sell. People make fun of midichlorians to this day as being stupid bullshit, and it's like, we're not gonna make an entire movie about midichlorians. That would be stupid, so we're not doing that. And, I think that the fact that we're sitting here watching this show, and I've been discussing it now for 20 minutes, I feel like it's kind of, this show is more of a direct slap in the face to Lucas than anything that, it was done before it. Where it's like, he could be annoyed that they didn't want to use his outlines, because it's make us outlines, tell us what you want to do with them, and we'll make a decision then the outlines get made and they don't use them, where it's like, alright, fair enough. I mean, you know how many times in fucking Hollywood that happens, where it's like, oh, well, we're not making, we are not making, whatever you gave us. Here, give us the amount of pilots that go to networks, when they're picking up pilots, and the number that are optioned, is astronomical compared to the number that get made, and then the number that make it to air. Where it's the idea that, we gotta sit here and coddle the feelings of George Lucas, so it's here, I have these 3 outlines, and it's well, okay, well, let's see if we can get another option on it, let's shop it around and see who else can do it, and tell the story, and it's okay, well, cool, I guess. And look, that's not to say that Lucas's would have been better or worse than what we got. That's not to say that, I do firmly believe that as weird as the script for Duel of the Fates was, I think that would have been a better climax to the saga than, than The Rise of Skywalker was. So, I think that's a bigger, easier thing to point to and say, look, I think that there was a better option here. But at the same time, it's I can sit here and say that now, but it's not going to change anything. Honestly, I think that what should happen is the people who went for years crusading about, the word of Lucas is the word of God, and the fact that, Lucas isn't, being honored in the way that he deserves in the original in the sequels. Those people should be stepping up and being like, hey, so, funny story here. It is a, it's not a, it is about what George Lucas would have wanted. Because it was never about that. That's the thing, is that this makes it transparent that this was that those complaints were never truly about giving George Lucas his due. It was purely a transparent attack that was designed to be like, oh, well, maybe if we hit this right note, people will back us. And people will be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I can see that. But it's just that. It is painfully transparent now that this show is getting acclaimed, when it's the kind of thing where it's like, if it was not Boba Fett and it was the Fennec Shand show without Boba Fett, all of these complaints should be center stage. All of these complaints would be center stage. It would be, why is she able to do all of this immediately? Why is this like this? Why is this like this? Why is this like this? And it's like, years being a bounty hunter be damned, because she's been a bounty hunter since the fall of the Republic, but, she's about the same age as Boba Fett, but, I think that that's the thing, is that if we're going to complain about this, and I don't think it's necessarily a valid complaint for the sequels as much as it is for this and for, say, Thrawn, where it's like nothing bad ever happens to this guy. So I think if we look at this and we are, we're looking at what's going on with this broadly, there's I don't need to see him living among the Tusken Raiders. I really don't. Really don't need that. And it's taking up too much of the episode. And I don't need to see him, be loved by everyone except for the fucking mayor, maybe, and the Hutts, and I don't know. So yeah. We'll wrap up there for today. We got 5 episodes left of this. The 355 may be delayed on my end, because I'm not risking going to see the 355 with a what's it called, with a snowstorm. But yeah, so until the next episode, have a great rest of your week.